Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for October 25th, 2022. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there as well, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's weekly tittle, which was called 3 Wise Choices. The assignment was to set intentions about how you'd like to spend and enjoy the holiday season. We'd love to hear from our participants in Zoom and Facebook who thought about or wrote about a set of intentions to keep the holiday season sane and satisfying this year. Please let us know in the comments. Marsh, who is with us today, shared her 3 wise choices in a comment on our website. Marsh said, "This season, I am embracing being alone with specific self-care. First intention, where others in my immediate community are also alone, that I may gift them wrapped yet simply useful Secret Santa gifts. Second intention, wisely with kindness, say no to others' homes for the holidays, for I just don't want to go. Third intention, inner peace and quiet contentment is my way to celebrate these upcoming holidays this year."
Marsh, since I've worked with you, I know that this is your first or second holiday season without your husband, and I really admire your approach to self-care here. You're being very thoughtful about what you need to take care of yourself, and I'm glad that you've given it some thought and you have a plan. But just remember that it's okay for plans to change. So if you find that you need some company sometime during the holidays, take care of yourself that way also. Grief is a moving and unpredictable thing. So make space for however you need to deal with it on any given day. And thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Really good ones.
Yeah. I'll wait to hear whether anybody else has a tittle report. But meanwhile, I'm going to share another comment we received. YouTube viewer, the Judy JS, asked a question that may be on other people's minds. She said, "If it's going to be random topics from now on, how will we know if it's something of interest to watch or listen to? I don't understand the new format you're going to this week." Our previous announcements about changes to our format may have left a little too much to the imagination. So let me clarify how we plan for our shows to look going forward. After we finish recording each video, we'll write a title and description that identifies the topics we covered in that episode. So if you're looking on YouTube, you'll be able to see what the episode is about. And we're working on planning the next several episodes, so we'll also be able to announce the topics in advance once we're up to speed on this alternate format. We're going to alternate in no particular order between shows that cover in-depth topics, as we've usually done, and episodes that answer questions and address shorter topics. This new scheme is work in progress, so we hope you'll bear with us while we work out the kinks. Returning to the subject of the tittle, Teresa shared, "First intention, clean off my table. Second is to make a 3 unique salad and dessert dinner. Third intention, enjoy day with 2 sisters who each bring a salad. I hate to cook with them."
Okay, so can totally relate. I have been in the kitchen with members of my family who found it so disturbing for other people to be in the kitchen with them. They really just could not stand it. So, if you don't like to cook with other people in the kitchen, or you don't like to cook in the presence of your sisters, good plan for working it out in advance. Just make them ahead of time and then go over there and sit and drink while they work. I think that's an excellent plan.
Paula shared, "I moved to a new area this year, so don't have any holiday traditions here. It's great to have a clean slate. I'll have a non-traditional Thanksgiving dinner with my brother."
Oh, that'll be nice. And these things, they change over time. And so if you get to set some new some new holiday traditions to go with your new location, that would be wonderful. And I bet that there's some cool things, some concerts, some presentations, some play, some action that's going on around the holidays that you can go explore and participate in too. And so you can get out and sample what your new location has to offer. Have fun.
M said on the Tittle, I only worked on one to get the living room nice enough that I can invite people over and let people in if they drop by.
What
That's
a great
biggie.
plan. Yeah.
That's a big intention, and good for you.
And you will have immediate reward for having done the work. If you do it, 'tis the season for drop-ins. And so you will get to have people come and sit in your living room with you. And how great is that? Like, everybody needs to have social time during the holidays. And so go for it. Make your space cool and be comfortable with it so that when people come, you can let them come in. And maybe you could even invite some people to come.
Sam reported, no Tittle for me, though I did 3 wise things by donating 3 dresses.
Yay. That's okay. We allow adaptation.
Right.
You can adapt the Tittle to your own needs.
Exactly.
Right?
If it gets you in motion, the Tittle was a success.
Right. And 3 dresses out the door, 3 of those things hanging in the closet. That's excellent.
Okay. We've been stockpiling our viewers and listeners' questions and topic suggestions for quite a while. You know, we ask you all the time to share those things with us, and they pile up, and occasionally we even look at them. Well, we've been taking a harder look at them, and we're ready to roll out an episode today dedicated entirely to satisfying your clutter curiosity. We're test driving our alternative format in which we'll answer audience questions and offer tips for managing walk-in closets, finding a place for everything, downsizing as you age, and whatever other topics we have time for. We're going to start by answering a question from a YouTube viewer.
So this question came to us from Corey, who shared, I have a nice sized walk-in closet, but the shelves and the racks are full. The floor space stores things that are rarely used in boxes. Is it okay to use the closet floor as storage space, or should it be kept clear? And the answer to this question depends on a whole bunch of factors. So here are some things to consider as you try to decide how to make the best use of space in a walk-in or another large closet. So the first one is safety. Can you move around inside the closet without the danger of tripping or falling? And for walk-in closets, can you get in and out of the closet with ease? The health consideration, can you keep the closet clean and free of dust? Does the stuff on the floor hamper your ability to keep the floor clean? Access is an issue. Does the stuff on the floor restrict your access to anything else? Does it make it harder to get to things on the high shelves because you can't reach, or you can't get a step stool or step ladder in there? Does it interfere with the free movement of the things on the lower rods? If you put things underneath things that are hanging on the lower rod, can you not move the things on the lower rod back and forth easily? Does it make putting clothes away more difficult? There's an aesthetic and privacy consideration. Can you easily close the closet door to keep any mess out of sight when somebody's coming over or you don't want to look at it? Can you close the door and it's not a problem to make it happen? So our conclusion here is that the decision ultimately comes down to your personal threshold for how much stuff can go into a space before it starts to feel cluttered, uncomfortable, or unsafe for your use. There it is.
A couple of people have asked, well, actually Kat asked, and several people have already chimed in to ask, this is unrelated, but do you have any advice on how to hire a housekeeper who is capable and willing to work in a severe clutter situation?
There are some people who clean, who find really tight spaces or really cluttered spaces or really dirty spaces distressing. And then there are some people who are like, whatever, I can dive in. So you might want to ask what their threshold is. Like, at what point do they feel like this is too much for me to handle? I can't be in this environment. And also ask them, do they have allergies to dust? Is it a problem? Are they comfortable? Maybe you want to suggest if can they wear a mask, if that would make them feel more comfortable, if it would be make them feel like it was okay or safer for them to be in the environment. I guess it just depends on how bad you think it is, how toxic you think it is. Like, is there, when you go down the sort of hoarder scale, you start to get into, there's waste from animals that might be in the house, there's bugs that might be in the house, there's mice that might be in the house, and those become hazardous conditions for somebody to clean in. And so if you think those are problems in your house, then you need to let the person know that that's the environment that they're coming into, and are they prepared to function in that environment and keep themselves safe. If it's super crowded, I mean, I'm thinking of the cleaner's physical condition. If they're not nimble, flexible, it might be harder for them to work in a space that's really cluttered. That's what I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Yeah, so you have to make it clear up front that they'll be working within some constraints. You want to make sure that they are comfortable with working in such a situation. And I was thinking, you know, you could, when you if you advertise the position, you say, you know, this is a you know, an extremely cluttered space, and we'll want to, I would think you'd probably want to interview them in your home, because ultimately they're going to have to come in there, and there's no point, obviously there's no point in hiring someone who's going to quit after 2 weeks because they can't handle your situation. So
and I think also letting them know up front is important. And cleaners are going to clean, they're not necessarily going to declutter. A lot of people think that housekeepers will do the decluttering at the same time. No, they're not. It's two different skill sets. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to clean around your clutter. So they will not be able to get to clean everywhere. They may desperately want to clean all of it, but they can't get to places that are too crowded, too cluttered, too blocked off. So they're not going to be able to do all of the organizing and decluttering as part of the cleaning process. They really, one interferes with the other. So if you have a lot of clutter, they're going to clean around it. They're going to, depending on how much time you're willing to pay for, they may put some time into trying to declutter some of the stuff, but housekeepers don't generally try to work with the client. They need you to be out of the way. And
they want to be acting independently.
Yes. And so you will be making, you know, if you let them do decluttering, they may end up making decisions for you that you didn't wish them to make. So and there is a level of, they can clean the toilets, they can clean the kitchen sink, they can mop the floors, they can vacuum around clutter, and they still can't get to all the house while the clutter's there. So you may need to be if you have a big clutter issue, you may need to be running 2 teams right now and letting somebody come and help you work with the decluttering, and while the person comes and cleans every week. And, you know, the more spaces you clear out, the more spaces the housekeeper will clean. So they'll be happy to clean it up once you uncover it. You just got to uncover it.
Amanda said, mine will clean any room, but really just cleans around the piles. I try to tidy up first so I get my money's worth.
Exactly. And at the very least, if you are struggling with capacity issues, you know, somebody that can come and scrub the toilet and keep the floor clean in your bathroom, can keep the bathtub clean, can keep the kitchen sink clean and the floor, then you're keeping the environment healthy for you to be healthier for you to be in. Basically.
Well, and I would think if part of your situation is some of the low-hanging fruit that we talk about, as, you know, I'm going to mix
easy
metaphors,
decisions,
the first layer of the onion to mix metaphors. If your housekeeper is comfortable with it, you could say, you know, you could gather recycling. If you see water bottles, breakdown boxes, things like that. Pick up obvious trash if it's safe to do so from a health standpoint. Jane asked, would Mary maids or similar do this type of decluttering and cleaning? You've kind of answered that. They wouldn't do the decluttering, just the cleaning. Also, here's the harder part. Also, how to find a housekeeper that does not gossip about the condition of the inside of my home. That's going to come down to interviewing the person and feeling that this is someone that you can develop a level of trust with. I think that's just
I mean, I
about
guess,
all
you
you
know,
could
the
do
worry
there.
is are you hanging out with the people that she hangs out with, or she or he? Like, do you actually, if they were to gossip, would they be able to associate it with anybody that, would the people that they're talking to know you actually or interact with you? I guess it depends on your community and how close knit it is. Generally, I would think housekeepers don't, they're too busy. They don't have time. They're
Well,
running from house to house. They don't really have time to gossip about it, I think.
I would think that if they're working through an agency, they
Yeah.
probably are asked to maintain some ethical standards, just
Mhm.
like NAPO as a NAPO organizer, you promise to maintain your client's confidentiality, not to
Yeah.
share any information about working with clients that would make them identifiable. We're always careful to anonymize any story you
The
tell about a
stories we
client.
tell. Yeah,
And I would think that
exactly.
housekeepers could reasonably be held to a similar standard.
To do the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in a pinch, you could you could write your own set of ethical standards and ask them to agree to it,
Yeah.
you know?
And you're always taking a risk
Yeah, and you're
that,
still going to have to try to develop trust
yeah,
with the
exactly.
person.
Exactly.
Catastrophe shared, people don't think about these things, and usually the mess doesn't bother yourself as much because of desensitization.
Mm-hmm. Like you've way long gotten used to it, but other people come in and it's a new canvas. It's a new picture they're looking for. And so when I walk into houses that people are always asking me, is this the worst one you've ever seen? No, it's not. It's never,
It never is.
It never is, because in the back of my head, I'm thinking about, disturbing the paper and having the mice run. And I'm thinking about disturbing the bag and having the eggs explode. So
right.
Unless you can top that, no, it's never going to be the worst. Everyone has their own threshold and they're not used to it like you are. And they see everything fresh because it hasn't become part of the landscape like it has to you. Those piles become part of the landscape and you start to ignore them. And so anybody that comes into your house is going to be looking at 100% of it with fresh eyes. And so it can all be adjusted and changed. Like we can all always get on. That's why I always think about, I tell people when you're wondering about what to clean or what it looks like, imagine if you were standing there and your mother-in-law was looking at it. Everything becomes visible again when your mother-in-law is looking at it and you suddenly realize what's there. It stops being part of the landscape and you remember what it looks like. There's a way to prompt yourself to get to see it fresh again.
Joyce asked, would a local professional organizer be able to recommend qualified willing cleaners?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they probably have people that they work with already, or they know who's out in the market with a good reputation. So yeah, I'm sure that would be that's like a good tandem thing to do. Get an organizer and let them recommend somebody for you.
Pat shared, Kent County in Michigan has a senior millage benefit that provides 2 hours of housekeeping for little or no cost. I don't know the word. I don't know what millage means. I'm not sure if mileage wouldn't make more sense. So I'm not sure what the phrase means. Different companies provide these services with different people. Try something and be open to changing.
Yeah. Well, and how great that they provide a couple of hours. That a couple of hours is enough to make a dent in the places that need to be sanitized for your safety. Like I said, the kitchen and the bathroom and the floors around those that are more germ heavy than less. And so a couple of hours is a great way to get some work done and then leave you spend your time doing the stuff that they really can't get their hands on. And, they're doing the hard work of scrubbing.
Okay, lots of great comments on this topic, but we need to move on because we have more we want to cover today.
Yes. Are we going to the next one?
Yes, let's.
Okay, so we've all heard the expression, a place for everything and everything in its place. But obviously, before you can put everything in its place, you first have to decide on a home for it. So lots of people, including frequent Zoom participant Lise, have asked for tips on finding a home for everything. So for each item that needs a home, you want to ask yourself these questions. Of course, you have to ask first and foremost, does this thing deserve a place in my home? You'll lighten the load of assigning storage spaces if you don't start from the assumption that everything gets to stay. So question number one, do I really actually need to find a place for it? And let it go. And then if it is staying and you do need, then you can ask the rest of the questions. Where do I use this item? Or at the very least, where do I use it the most often? And how often do I need it? Consider the flow of your habits and routines. When do I typically take this thing out? When do I put it away? Designating an item's home so that it fits with your daily routine will help you establish the rock solid habit you want. For example, if you always empty your pockets or your purse into a tray on the dresser before you take off your work clothes, you'll always know where to look for your wallet. So the place that the purse and the pockets get emptied is always the tray on the dresser. Where am I likely to look for this item when I need it? That's a good one. Is this item part of a set or a collection? Are there similar items with which this thing could be logically stored? Grouping like with like increases your chance you can be able to find the item when you need it. How difficult is the thing to move around? I'm thinking in particular of those super huge KitchenAid Mixmaster things that weigh like 50 pounds. And the idea of sticking that thing on a lower cabinet in the back when you practically have to get a moving man to come and pull it out again, it makes it probably not a good place to store it just because of its weight. Is this thing appealing to look at? Could it be stored in open view? Once you've decided on a tentative home for the item, ask yourself, how easily will I be able to find this? How easily can I take it out and put it away again? And you don't want to have to move 5 other things to get at something that you need frequently. If you designate a catch-all space, make sure it's no larger than it needs to be to contain a reasonable collection of odds and ends. It's better to have a junk drawer than a junk room.
Amen.
Don't go to your catch-all space as the default option. Give some careful consideration to all the other questions before you relegate something to a junk drawer, or an ancillary, relegating it to the I'll think about this later pile. Sometimes the problem isn't that an item doesn't have a home, but that too many things share the same home. For example, the closet is overstuffed and the bookshelves that are overflowing. Then you have to consider whether or not you have the space and the means to create a new home for things, such as by adding a new bookshelf or wardrobe, or whether it makes more sense to pare down the collection. And you know what I'm going to vote for?
Right.
I'm always going to vote for paring down first. Adding the bookshelf or the wardrobe, it just adding more furniture and more weight into the house. So if you have run out of space and you're thinking about adding, another container, another large piece of furniture as a container, you need to stop and go pare down first. Ultimately, the things that you use often, they need uncrowded space in easiest to access spots. And things that you use less often get put in harder or more awkward to reach spaces. And things that get used once a year or even less go into dry dock spots. Those places that are high or hidden or need a ladder to reach. Things back in the back of cabinets or on the upper shelves of the closet, etc. Think holiday decorations. They need to be in the most out of the way place because they come out or go back once a year. And so, and here's my perfect example. I remember this forever because I was so stunned when I saw it. Years ago, I went to a house and the family had 2 boys that were like 8 and 10. And they had the wedding china, the full set of the wedding china on the lowest shelf, closest to the sink in the dishwasher, set up. The whole collection, the whole 12 place setting collection was in that lower cabinet where everyone could reach it. The boys could reach it and break it. And no one was actually using the wedding china. Of course, they were using something else. And so that was the one that was like, oh, this is so in the wrong place. And it was the very first thing that I moved in the kitchen when I worked on this project, was to take that wedding china and get on a ladder and go put it in the very highest part of the cabinet. There was a cabinet with 3 shelves. And I went to the cabinet that was farthest away from the sink, went all the way to the upper shelf, and the wedding china went up there. So A, the boys could never break it. And B, it was not in the way of the everyday stuff. So making that evaluation about whether you're using it all the time and how often you access it, and correlating that between the easiest to access spaces and the ones that are the most logical next to where you would use them, is the best place to figure out where things should go. How to set this is their home base, is what I'm saying.
Joyce commented, "Oh my gosh, I was in high school before I realized my mom had wedding china. Even on Thanksgiving, we used the dishes mom got piece by piece at the Acme."
Oh, there you go. Right. Like, why do you get wedding china? And then when do you allow it to come out? That we have that discussion all the time. Like, if you never let it come out, then why are you having it? What's the point?
Paula shared, Dana K. White of A Slob Comes Clean has a useful question. Where would I look for this item first? I looked all over for something this past week, as it wasn't where I looked for it first. It is now.
Yay. Good job.
Yeah, that's a good habit to practice, is when you find yourself taking a ridiculous amount of time to find something, assign it a new home.
Yeah, it's time to have a new home that makes better sense, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately everybody has this problem. It should all be in this home that's easy to access, except that there's 150 other things in that space. And so you will find that there are constraints between things you think you have to have easy access to and the space where you would put them. And if they don't fit, then you are constrained by your house or your space, and you have to reduce the collection to make it match the space that you have, because ultimately jamming them all into a space that's close by doesn't improve your situation if you have to unpack 37 things to get to the one that you want. So you in addition to the space being easy to access for the things you use all the time, there needs to be some air in the space so that it's easy to put things in and out, and you can see and grab the things that are that you use all the time without interference. And so it's important. You can stuff things in the cabinets that you're not going to get into very often, but you can't do that for the more active zones.
Well, and you have to be realistic about how often you use things. So my crafts these days are drawing and coloring with pencils and colored markers, and charcoal. And once in a blue moon, I need a pair of scissors, but I really do not need a pair of scissors that is sitting here all the time in my very limited workspace.
Right,
so
exactly.
I know where the scissors are in the drawer in the kitchen on the occasion I need them. And it's tempting to try and stock every workspace with everything you could ever imagine using, but that is not practical.
Well, and it creates more stuff that you have to manage. So
yeah,
if you're, if you actively use that zone, and like you said, if you were using scissors all the time, then you're having to get up 4 times a day to go get a pair of scissors, then it would make sense for them to be there. But if you're not, then, once a week or once a month, you have to go get a pair of scissors. Whoop-de-ta.
Dawn said, regarding homes, since I use pens, scissors, and garbage cans in multiple locations, I have labeled pens and scissors with their individual home assignment. It makes it easy if the pen for next to my bed turns up in the living room. It's easy to take it home.
There you go.
In quotes.
It's easy to reset it that way. Good job. And sometimes you forget what the home is supposed to be, or other people are helping you and you want them to know where something's supposed to go. And that's a great way to do it. Labeling the space where it's supposed to go. And also, if you want, labeling the object so that it can go back to its space. Good job. You're being helpful to yourself.
Sam said, I have a junk bag now for my bedroom. It took 32 years, but now all junk and clutter is now in one normal size single reusable bag.
Woohoo! Da, 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 da. Love it, love it, love it. That's how you're making your house work for you. I'm proud of you.
On the subject of wedding china, Leela said, I have always used my wedding china daily.
Good for you.
Why
Why
have
not?
something so pretty and never see it? I
Exactly.
wholeheartedly agree.
What is the point of investing the money if no one ever actually eats off the dishes? That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
Good job. I'm sure that you have enjoyed it every day, and that's a lovely thing.
Okay, let's go on to our next
Oh,
subject,
okay. The
shall
next
we?
subject then. In response to one of our recent surveys, Susan Marie suggested the topic of downsizing as you age. This is a great topic for this audience. We recognize that a lot of our viewers are Generation X and baby boomers like ourselves who have reached the age where downsizing is not a someday idea, but a much more imminent project. So I've got some tips for you. The first one is start early. If downsizing is something you expect to have to do, it's better to do the work while you still have the mobility and the stamina to tackle the project. It only gets harder every day you wait. So get going on it now. If you think you're tired working on it now, imagine what it will be like 5 years from now. You want to establish a plan about downsizing, including either a destination or the goal of aging in place. You have the leisure to investigate properties and talk to your family and decide if your home design will allow you to age in place right now. If you wait until the need arises, it's too late to think it all over carefully. You'll just have to jump into something and hope for the best. It's a good idea to set a tentative timeline as well. When do you think moving makes sense? And I'm going to tell a story here. I had a client, I got called in because I got called into an assisted living apartment because a social worker for a couple requested someone come and clear up some of the pathways and make it easier for the people to walk around in the apartment. And what had happened for them was they decided to downsize. I don't remember what the trigger was exactly, but they did it in a hurry. And they packed everything up in a hurry and they moved everything with the help of their family. But the couple did a whole bunch of the work themselves, and they really shouldn't have. And they really shouldn't have done it at the speed that they did it. They kept forcing themselves to do more and more and more, trying to get done and get the deadline, meet their deadline. And the end result was that the wife got to the apartment and she was having pain in her back, and it didn't go away and didn't go away and didn't go away. And it turned out in all of that overworking that she did, she cracked some vertebrae from the process of packing and trying to move too much in too much of a hurry. And so she ended up having to go and have a bunch of medical treatment to try to recover from her doing it at the last minute and pushing herself too hard. So we don't want you to do that. So set the timeline, make the plan, and start moving towards it so that you can do it at a pace that is appropriate for your physical capacity. If you plan to hand items down to your family members, start a system to track which kid or grandkid gets which item. You can put labels on things and write down your plans for bequests in a notebook or a file that can later become part of your will. Consider what things you might be ready to hand over right now. Frankly, giving an item to the intended recipient now ensures it goes to the right person and gives you the enjoyment of their receiving it. I think there's something to be said for personally saying, here, darling, I'm giving this to you for safekeeping, or I'm passing this to you now it's yours, and experiencing their delight and excitement about it is worth being around for. So you might as well do some of it now. Identify your problem areas and prioritize them for at least a first pass of decluttering. If you have a densely packed space with a lot of unknowns where you expect difficulty, make a plan to start addressing the space in manageable chunks of time. Make dealing with the paper in your house a priority. Your family is going to be burdened with your files and papers, and you're the best one to evaluate their importance. You might as well start throwing out the trash and identifying things that the family will need to have. It'll be hours of work you're sparing your family, and you'll prevent them accidentally throwing out something important. So you going through your paper is a much more effective and efficient solution than them having to do it after the fact. So put it on the list, get it done. Those are my downsizing tips for the moment.
Okay, we have some follow-up questions on the subject of everything, questions and comments on the subject of everything in its place.
Okay.
Connie said, I have to put huge labels on cabinets if I change a place. Otherwise, DH gets flustered. And
there is body memory. There is, you get used to where stuff is and your body remembers it even when you don't exactly. And so the older you get, adjusting locations requires more adjustment time.
And Catastrophe said, my issue is 6 years of being in this house and somehow I am the only person who knows where anything goes. And the follow-up to that one was, and the kids have this fantastic new hobby of swiping what I'm actively using and putting it away. It's always the only things that get put up. I spend hours every day doing circles searching for my stuff.
Oh, that's annoying.
So we should talk about how to negotiate a place for everything and everything in its place when you have to share your space.
Yeah, and you may want the stuff that you're actively using like that they're putting away. You may want to find a little container, a box, a bin, something that you can put the stuff that you're working in inside of it, just so it's contained, even if it's floating around or you move it from space to space as you work in the house or whatever, just to identify that it's not loose. For easy grabbing. Like somebody won't typically go into a bin to grab something out to put it away. If it's in a bin, they'll consider it put away and they'll stop. And so if you have stuff that you're trying to keep track of every day, you might want to give yourself a little portable container to do that with and maybe keep their hands off of it. The second thing is that I would investigate whether they're doing it on purpose to annoy you.
Yeah, if they're teenagers, that is definitely
if the kids
a
are teasing you and they're trying to mess with you, then maybe you need to have a conversation with them about, why are these the things you're putting up? Why aren't you putting your own stuff? Or before you put something up that doesn't belong to you, you have to ask the question, Mom, are you using this? Can I put it away?
Well, and she puts away in quotation marks. So it may be that it's not so much that they're getting proactively stored, as they're getting used and left somewhere else.
Oh, left behind.
Yeah. I'm thinking of, my mom always had the best pair of scissors in the house.
Yeah.
And
the sewing scissors.
She had to very carefully hide them from us or put them, she had a, not a sewing basket, I don't know what you call it, but it was sort of like a, soft-sided cloth thing on a rack.
Yeah.
That the project and tools she did at that time, the one I'm thinking of was she was doing embroidery. And her scissors were really good, expensive left-handed scissors.
Yeah.
And
they're sharp and pointy, and
that did not stop her 5 right-handed children from taking them away and trying to use them when they couldn't find another pair of scissors. So some of what you need to do might, some of this managing this situation, I guess, is
I know what you're going to say. Setting
some boundaries and making it clear this is Mom's and nobody else's.
Stay out of it. But the side note is, if they are constantly grabbing your stuff because it's out and visible, and that's what they're doing, like, I need a pair of scissors, oh, there's a pair of scissors, and they walk off, then you can find out which kinds of things are they grabbing all the time and provide them with their own. Like, this might be a situation where having a duplicate set and having one, here's your set, you get this one, and let the kids have their own version of it, might be worth it. So that because if you're keeping it out because you're using it, that means it's visible to them and it's the first thing that they see. So figuring out what they're trying to accomplish, what kinds of things they need to get most often, and giving them their own set in their own room or wherever they work, might prevent some of this as well. But again, I say, like Ed's talking about, if you don't want it to be super visible and easily grabbed, you may need a container that you keep up with, that you put your stuff in and close the lid so that it's not the first thing that they see and they don't go running for it there.
Ellen added, I organized my son's kitchen for him 2 years ago and used Post-it notes to show where things were. They are still on the cabinets. I'm thinking about what 2-year-old Post-it notes usually look like, and it might be time to upgrade to
Actual
some nicer,
labels.
attractive labels. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's so funny.
And Lisa added, it's better to have some labels than all that stuff out.
Yeah, 100%.
Darn right. That's easier to look at. There was a great comment from Anya that I wanted to share. Yesterday, I realized that I don't need to declutter anymore and that I don't need to curate my things, just to reduce my inventory. Interests vary, and maybe it's okay to keep something I haven't used for more than a year.
Sure. And, for creative people, sometimes the interest in a craft or a project or whatever ebbs and flows. And so then it becomes a matter of, I'm not working on this one right now, and I'm not interested in this right now. So it can step out of the prime real estate, the easy access real estate, and the stuff that I am interested in and I am working on right now needs to come into the prime real estate. So maybe it's just a matter of you just shuffling its position based on your interest in the moment.
Maida has her hand up.
Hey, Maida, what's going on?
Maida, go ahead.
I have to make a comment about doing stuff when people are alive. So my mother passed, and we had this book, had all these things that look like her dreams. Like, oh my God, we found her dream book. What do these mean? And then I gave them to my aunt, who's a pastor, and she's reading. And then finally we figure out what it is that she has written down the jokes that Joel Osteen does, that pastor in Houston.
Yeah.
So all it is just nonsense. So she can remember the joke to tell my father. but when we find it, we don't know what it is.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
So that might be nonsense. So it is people alive. That is the truth.
Right. Deal with that paper now, baby. That's what we're saying. Thanks, Maida. As the recipient child of a non-understandable piece of paper, we don't know what's going on here. Yeah, and the thing is, if it's your parents' stuff, you always assume it's important. Like your default position is, this was my mother's, it must be important. You always go there first. You always think that it's valuable first. And so you have to convince yourself that it's not. And so, yeah, there, she figured it out. Awesome.
Thanks, Maida. Linda shared, I take photos of the contents of cupboards, drawers, and closets and tack them up in the space. No questions.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Unless someone is jerking my chain, which people will do.
People will do. But that's a great, like having that visual reference, that makes it, you can look at it and go, oh, that's where that goes. It's super easy. We put picture labels on storage for little kids who can't actually read words.
Right.
And so they get little pictures of their toys on their boxes or whatever. You can do the same.
Linda said, while downsizing, I had to remind myself and others that the priority was for stuff to go away permanently, rather than inventing clever organizing methods or too much stuff or moving stuff around to other places in the house. It needs to leave the property for good.
Exactly. And I think the thing that people, when they downsize, most often there's a large square footage change in the house, and you lose a lot of storage in that lost square footage. And people act like they're going to take 80% of what they belong and cram it into a smaller space and it'll all work out. And they don't realize how drastic losing square footage is in terms of maintaining volume. And so no one that I worked for ever gets rid of enough the first time when they downsize.
Right.
They always take too much. And then we get rid of as much as we can on the front end. They move it all, and then we try to put it all away, and it's like, oh, hell no, it's not all going to fit in here. And so then they have to go or do a second round of getting rid of more. And so just know that whatever you're thinking, you haven't gotten rid of enough. I'll just say right now, it's not enough. And if you can't do it all up front, then you're going to have to do it on the back end, because you don't want to be jammed into a small space either. And so you're used to living with a level of stuff in the background, in the closets, in the garage. You have all these possibilities and opportunities that you keep because you have the space. And when you downsize, you are wholesale giving up all kinds of options that are hanging with you. It doesn't mean that you can't do those things or access those things later, but it does mean that you can't live with that much of that much potential possibility in your house. And that's a mental shift that you have to make, that I don't have 3,000 things in the house so that I can solve any problem in the moment. You have to go about solving your problems differently. Like, you get rid of stuff. You don't live with the possibility when the problem comes up, then you go and get something that you need to solve the problem. So it's a mental shift in how you manage your life and your needs, and live with how much possibility you live with and how much problem solving you do actively in the moment, instead of storing it in the back somewhere.
M shared, I made a household rule of putting away tools whether or not the job was finished. Then if I don't get back to the job for a long time, the tools can be found if they are needed for another chore. That's
Exactly.
a really, really good habit. I'm always tempted to take a bucket or something and say, well, here are the 6 things I had to collect to start on this project, and I'll try to wrap it up tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes along and has other plans. And so it's 3 weeks before you get back to it. Meanwhile, you don't know where the painter's tape is. You don't know where that paintbrush got to. You've forgotten where you put down the bucket that contained the 4 essential things that you use for other projects. So really good habit.
And I think lots of people tend to pull tools when they're doing projects. They always end up pulling out tools that they don't use.
Yeah.
You overestimate what you're going to need. And so you end up with a whole bunch of stuff out, and then you don't use a quarter of it, and then none of it's put away. And the next project comes before you finish the first project, and you still got to know where the tools are. That's totally true.
Okay, one more comment and then we need to move on. Pat says, best place for good scissors, your underwear drawer.
Because nobody digging in your underwear drawer. That's pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you're right about that. Love it, love it, love it. Hiding your underwear drawer, hiding it in your underwear drawer. Great idea. That'll keep you from, mom's good sewing scissors getting used to cut homework paper.
I don't want people to think we were completely neglecting this week's survey. We developed a lot of content for this week, but I do want to give you 2 results from last week's survey, and we may talk about last week's survey some more next week. We'll see. Yeah. But on the question about what different types of clutter exist in your home, the number 1 answer at 66% was sentimental stuff.
There you go.
So that was interesting and
not a surprise.
And not a big surprise. And we'll talk more about that well, actually, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, I want to share my favorite answer that came in response to the question about clutter backstories. Barbara shared a delightful story in response to this week's survey.
Okay.
She said, this was a successful decluttering incident. My mother-in-law gave us a pile of cookbooks, Pillsbury Bake Off, and the kind you got free from Crisco or wherever pans during the 30s and 40s. They were cool and so sold for a decent amount at antique stores, but I never did anything with them through 4 or 5 household moves. The value went down. I sent a list to the University of Minnesota Library, and they took a few, but the remainder sat in the basement. Finally, I advertised on Buy Nothing and found a taker. The recipient's mom had collected cookbooks, but somehow the collection was lost.
Oh,
She and her sisters were very excited to get my collection. There were tears of joy. I still think
oh,
old cookbooks are cool, and I enjoy seeing them without the burden of owning them.
that's awesome. And you gave them to somebody that needed them. That is fabulous. Oh, thanks for sharing that story. That was excellent. That was
Isn't that nice?
excellent.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
it's a great reminder of something we say frequently, which is the stuff that is sitting around as deferred decisions in your home might be something someone else could be using right now.
Well, and she went through the trouble of she contacted the university and a couple, but they never want the whole collection, right? Like the solutions allow you to get rid of some of the collection, but not all. And so this way, she did a few other things and got rid of some, and then handed the whole what was left to this group of sisters. What a great solution for that. Thanks for sharing that story. That was wonderful.
Follow up from Ellen, she of the Post-it notes. She said, my son had just remodeled his kitchen and hates to organize things. His daughter decorated the Post-its and refreshes if needed.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
we can,
okay, baby.
we're not talking about some shabby
No shabby Post-it notes, man. These are high class
These are
Post-it
some
notes.
nice.
But I love that the daughter participates. That's awesome to keep them going. That's wonderful. Cool. That's
All right.
embracing some labeling.
All right, let's talk about next week. Barbara, who offered that story, was also among those who asked us to revisit next week's topic, which I'm about to tell you about. I want to remind everyone we'll be back for our next live webcast on Tuesday, November 1st at noon U.S. Central Time. And for EU and UK listeners, please note that since you'll turn your clocks back this Sunday, next week's episode will be 1 hour earlier than usual in your time zone. The US doesn't make the switch until November 7th, but we'll be back in sync the following week. Okay.
Don't miss us.
Every home contains at least a few items we keep, even though they serve no practical purpose and can be awkward to display and difficult to maintain. We're talking sentimental stuff. Even when we want to let go, we get sidetracked down the path of memories, emotions, and long-held beliefs.
Yep.
Next week, we're going to explore factors that keep us holding on when we should rationally let go, and offer tips for balancing sentimental value with our real-world conditions of time, space, stamina, and resources. Join us on November 1st for a detour down memory lane. Declutter stuff with sentimental value.
I know you can't wait to hear it. We're going to be ready for you.
How about a tittle?
Okay, this week's tittle is called Start Peeling the Onion. So a viewer, Ellen in Michigan, reminded us about the idea of working on a decluttering project as if you're peeling an onion. And she credits this metaphor to the minimal mom. And we've seen versions of it elsewhere. So we're going to put some links out for you. Here's how you go about peeling the onion. For an organizing project that you're finding too big or overwhelming to get started, choose the first layer of the onion to peel. In other words, identify one subtask or small part of the problem to address as your first priority. So here's some example. If the space or the pile contains conspicuous trash, broken items, or recycling, then you can remove that material without stopping to make any decisions about what's left. And there's always more trash and recycling in a space that's piled up than you think there is. There's always lots of stuff that you can subtract without, you can take the contents out of the box and still recycle the box, and you've reduced the volume of what's in the room. So starting with trash is a good one. If there's no trash or recycling, or once you complete the trash and recycling, make a quick pass just to remove anything that doesn't belong in the space in which you're working. And this is where you reset things. And the scissors that aren't supposed to be in that room, there's things in there from the kitchen that need to go back to the kitchen, stuff that belongs in the bedroom that you brought in and never made it back out. So going through the contents of a space and identifying it's in the wrong room and putting it in the right room. Even if you can't organize it in the right room, you still are making one more step towards making the project work, because when you get to that room and organize the room, all the pieces will be in there. So don't let the fact that you're taking it someplace that is also cluttered stop you from resetting and getting things in the room they're supposed to be in. And that doesn't require, again, you don't have to make decisions about what remains. You're just saying, oh, this is just in the wrong room, and I'm going to go walk it and put it in the right room. And that's not a big decision to make. So it's low hanging fruit. If there's nothing else out of place in terms of what room it is in, then look for anything old or outdated that you're ready to set free, like back issues of magazines or movies you don't watch anymore, or old electronics or old mail, or, a piece of furniture that isn't your thing anymore. Anything old or outdated is an easy thing to identify, filter, and recycle. If there's nothing out of date in the space, now you can look for obvious items that could be removed for donation. So now you're going to look at the contents and say, this stuff is all okay. It's all in the right room. It's not trash, but maybe I'm through with it. Maybe I'm ready to donate it. And so you can pluck off anything that is ready to be donated by easy decision, that it's easy for you to go, I'm never going to use that. I don't like that picture. That piece of decor is not my style, and out it can go. And once you pulled out, here's the trash, here's the stuff in the wrong room, here's the stuff that's outdated, here's the stuff that's easy donation decisions, you'll be amazed at how much you have shrunk the volume of the room. And you'll be left with a smaller pile of things that you have to make good decisions about. So let's start here. Let's peel the first layer of the onion and get all those things out of your project room, and see if you can't come back with a little bit more momentum and a little bit better idea of what's left to do. And we'll look forward to hearing about it next week.
Okay, I have to make a correction. It was pointed out to me that the time change in the US is November 6th.
Oh, sorry.
I have never been good at operating a calendar.
You are sort of calendar deficient, aren't you?
Calendar challenge. November 6th is the Sunday,
okay,
when our time change takes place in the US.
Thank you for fixing us.
Also, one more great question that I want to answer. Pat asked, any possibility of us sharing before and after photos? That's actually something that would be fairly easy for us to implement on the website. So I will put that on my list. That's a pretty easy project. We could add the ability to upload photos to our. You could also
put them into Facebook right now. You could go and put some photos into Facebook for us to see as well. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you can share them on our Facebook page. Which
just put it on the link of the put them in the comments of the recording in Facebook, and we can see them there as well.
Yeah. Okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To receive notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, and you can post there as well.
Right.
Or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe.
Subscribe.
We love to hear from you. So please keep those questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us, including our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Clutterfairyhouston.com. That's us. We love to hear from you wherever you like to make the comments. We get to see all of them. So thank you so much for participating in that. And we love that you guys are so interactive with us. That's the fun part for us on this end, is that we're getting to have this constant conversation with you all the time. So we appreciate you do it. And we look forward to hearing from you. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.